The story you have been told of the finding of Angron is a lie. I have often wondered about the Primarch Angron, specifically his discovery and the Emperor's actions. These actions are often used as an example of how the Emperor is a bad father, but I feel that there are some points that are missed with this simplistic approach. As with all lore within the 40k universe, it works best when compared to ancient myth and legend. The time of Hector, breaker of horses. The time of Achilles. The accepted story is that the Emperor of Mankind met with Angron before his army's final battle, tried and failed to convince him to leave, and finally teleported him away, only for him to then watch his warriors die. When the Emperor found Mortarion on Barbarous, he assisted in the destruction of the High Overlord. It seems odd that he would do this for one son, but not another. When it came to Angron, the Emperor visited and chatted with him, but did not use his power or diplomacy to end the war on New Syria. In the book Betrayer, Angron revisits New Syria, bringing his wrath and destruction to it. He is remembered in a sort of Kaiser Soze way. But critically, this means that New Syria was not only not stopped from attacking Angron's army, but it was also allowed to continue pretty much unchanged, and at some point became part of the new Imperium. If these elements were to be taken at face value, this would mean that the Emperor could not diplomatically end the war, but could convince the planet to join the Imperium. It would mean that he decided not to do something he had already done for another sun, despite having a Warhound fleet in orbit, or at least within teleportation range. I believe that New Syria was already part of the nascent Imperium, and so was spared its destruction. This adds some excellent tragic backstory to Angron, growing up unknown on an already compliant Imperial world. But whilst adding to the myth, it would raise another question. Why did the Emperor not just order New Syria to stop the attack? There must be another reason that the planet could not be stopped. Was the planet too powerful? Or had some resource too valuable to the burgeoning Imperium? This is unlikely. How is the Emperor of Mankind, who negotiated the Treaty of Olympus Mons, unable to negotiate the end to a war that both sides want? Certainly with the threat of the Warhounds in orbit, which we know from the story After the Shay from Tales of the Heresy. From the same story, we know that once Angron was teleported off the surface to the ship the Advent Resolve, he was not spoken to by the Emperor. Instead, he was met individually by the members of the Warhound's command cadre. This would mean that the Emperor would have teleported Angron away, against his wishes, and then just assumed that the Warhounds would be able to deal with a being as powerful as a Primarch. I believe the solution to these questions is hinted at within the book Betrayer. Within this book, we learn that the librarians of the World Eaters are able to commune with Angron psychically, joining their consciousness together to present themselves as a single being to their Primarch. Therefore, it is possible that they husbanded their power to present an image of the Emperor, hoping that the appearance of his father would sway Angron to join them. This would explain why he made no attempt to end the war, merely to talk his son into leaving. In the book Master of Mankind, the custodian Ra Endymion remarks that he wasn't there when Angron was found, and whilst one specific custodian not being there when a Primarch is found does not guarantee that the Emperor wasn't, it does however imply that Endymion was there at the finding of others. In the same book, the Emperor also brings Arkan Land to confirm his hypothesis that Angron has been implanted with the Butcher's nails. An odd thing if he had been on New Syria and had been aware of their cultures and gladiatorial pastimes. My belief is that the stories of Angron reached the Warhounds, and feeling a solidarity for this mighty gladiator, the Warhound Command Cadre and Honour Guard travelled to New Syria to meet their potential liege lord. However, on arrival, they found they had come too late, with the armies of New Syria on the verge of destroying the slave revolt. With no authority to order the cessation of hostilities on an already imperial planet, Legion Master Gahir discusses what they are to do, and the librarians of the Warhounds propose a plan to convince their lord to leave. After it is unsuccessful, with no other option, they decide to steal him away, hoping that in time, Angron will forgive them. Realising their mistake once he is aboard, the Legion Master goes to convince Angron to take command. Slowly, one by one, the successive Legion commanders go in to speak to their lord, and one by one they are killed by his fury. And with each of their deaths, the secret of Angron's adoption by the Legion is known to fewer and fewer, until ultimately it falls to a commander, who does not know the lies within the plan, and Khan of the Eighth is able to convince him. With the murder of the command cadre, Angron also murders any knowledge of the lie, and the actions that have led to his finding by his legion. Therefore, the true tragedy of Angron's story is that he was lied to and stolen by his legion, and although he killed those responsible, he always accuses his father, and given the deception, who can blame him? Had Angron not blamed his father, or come to terms with the aims of the Great Crusade, then I am certain that he would have died in the final confrontation with Horus, rather than Sanguinus. The story of a Primarch who failed to conquer his homeworld, was stolen away, but ultimately overcame his hatred and the nails, to be martyred and exonerated in the final battle.